Continuous praise to the Most High God, King of heaven and earth, even the God of our forefathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzchak, and the God of Yisrael. Jehoshaphat is his name. I bid you all in the tongue of our forefathers, Shabbat Shalom Lakam. How's everybody feeling? Man, great. This is what I need to hear. So we're going to pick up in the history, right? And last week we left off with 1 Kings chapter 20. We finished out and we were reading about Ahab. You know, there's this thing about being the king. Heavy is the head of he who wears the crown. And I say that because, you know, there's a lot of times where you have to deal with other people's emotions and your own emotions. There's times where you have to stop and think about what you want for yourself and what's in the best interest of the people. And sometimes in thinking what's in the best interest of the people, you have to sacrifice your own feelings. And if you're a leader that's led by ego, it won't work. If you're a leader that's led by ego, by thinking of what you want and how you want things to be, and you never consider other people, it won't work. And why is that? Because what's best for you may not necessarily be best for everybody else. But when your ego's involved, you can't see that. When your ego's involved, all you can think about is what makes you happy and how you can be satisfied and what people need to do to cater to you. But that's not the world we live in, is it? The world that we live in tells us that there's going to be a certain level of compromise. There has to be a certain level of compromise because all of us are different individuals. What makes me smile and what makes me happy is not necessarily what makes you smile and makes you happy. And so the problem with Ahab was nobody was learning from the mistakes of Jeroboam, pronounced in Hebrew, Yeravam. Nobody understood how Jeroboam forsook his blessing. The Most High God gave him 10 of the tribes out of Israel, and the kings, after he messed it up and he introduced calf worship again from Egypt, nobody was learning from this. And so you see the statement, and he did worse than his forefathers. And so you stop and you say, like, if you were already being wicked, how can you be more wicked than the wicked? How can you stop and be like, yo, yeah, he was bad, but he was worse? Because when you start putting things in perspective, you stop and you say, well, what really was going on that made this so bad? Because we've read about Baal worship before, right? We heard in the Hebrew word Baal simply means Lord. And so you had different Baalim, being the plural. You had different Baals that people worshiped. And so we've read about Baal Zavuv, and we've read about Baal Peor and the different Baals that were there. But the thing is that we read in 1 Kings chapter 17 where there was a showdown between Elijah the Tishbite and the prophets of Baal, if we remember our history. And when that happened, what God was showing was that no matter who you served, I'm still God. And these things that you're calling God are indeed not God. But the part that we tend to scan over, the part that we tend to not internalize is the fact that Jezebel, the wife of Ahab, was killing the prophets of the Lord. She wanted them dead. And that's what made him more wicked. Because his wife was actually pulling the strings while he was a puppet king. his wife brought strange religious worship into the kingdom, and he did nothing to correct it, even though he understood the mistakes of his forefathers. And I want us to internalize that for a second. Because he was the king and he was in charge, but his wife was telling him what to do, and she had no intention of praising the Most High God. And as a matter of fact, she wanted Elijah dead also. And so I stopped and I said, I was like, if taking somebody's life doesn't make you think twice, then what does make you think twice? If you can order a hit, if you want to make somebody die just because they praise the Most High God, what is that saying about you as a person? And so in these days and times, we can't relate to that because we don't see, the prophets of the Lord going up and down the street prophesying to us. But what we do see is people who don't want us to serve God. And that's what the whole point of this is. The whole point of this is that there was people, and there was a woman in particular who did not want people to serve the Most High God. And I want us to remember that as I continue to teach, because today's lesson will be about your friends, family, and acquaintances. And I'm going to say that in that exact order. Friends, family, and acquaintances. And I understand that family is supposed to come before friends. But I'm guaranteeing you that a lot of time we put our friends before family. Why, I don't know. And so when that happens, I stop and I say, who's influencing who and how are they influencing you? Because we're going to see today about how the king was negatively influenced by the one who was closest to him, his wife. And as we go on, we're going to stop and see he regretted what he allowed to go on, and God forgave him, but he still punished him for what he did. And I say that because I want us to remember this. God can forgive you, but he will make you pay. Don't you believe for 1 second, because God has forgiven you, that you won't have to pay to some degree for what you have done. The God that we serve repays those who hate him to their face. And so as we get into today's lesson, we're going to read about the man Naboth. Somebody who was minding his business. Somebody who was just living life, fearing the Lord. And so a lot of times we tend to believe if I'm just minding my business, life should be good for me, right? I don't get myself involved in the foolishness. Y'all stay over there with that, and I'll be over here with this, and I'm good. That's how we believe it should work, right? But is that really how it works? Because there's times where people pull you in. You sit down, you're like, I'm trying to mind my business. I'm trying to stay away from the foolishness. And there's always somebody with their foolishness that comes along and messes everything up for everybody. And so I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to let him read. That's why judgment is important. Because when you have judgment, people won't be allowed to pull innocent people into foolishness. When you have judgment, people cannot stop and do things to innocent people that will affect people in such a way that they won't want to serve God. And I need that part to stay with us. Because when people no longer want to serve God, when people no longer want to be around the holy people, when people stop and say, I don't want to be around Israelites because of a certain activity, there's ownership that somebody has to have for that. And that ownership that's had starts at the top. But we'll read. 1 Kings chapter 21. Page 290. Oh, no. Yeah, 21. You confusing me now.
First Kings chapter 21, verse 1. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
And it came to pass after these things that Naboth, the Jezreelite, had a vineyard which was in Jezreel, hard by the palace of Ahab, king of Samaria. And Ahab spoke unto Naboth, saying, Give me thy vineyard, that I may have it for a garden of herbs, because it is near unto my house. And I will give thee for it a better vineyard than it, or if it seem good to thee, I will give thee the worth of it in money. And Naboth said to Ahab, Jehovah forbid it me, that I should give the inheritance of my fathers unto thee. And Ahab came into his house, sullen and displeased because of the word which Naboth the Jezreelite had spoken to him. For he had said, I will not give thee the inheritance of my fathers. And he laid him down upon his bed and turned away his face and would eat no bread.
Now look at this. This is the king of Israel. He has no want in the world except the vineyard. And so it started off, come to you. I want to buy your vineyard. It's close by the palace. It's a goodly vineyard. And what he said, and I will give thee for it a better vineyard than it. If the money's not enough, I'll give you one even better than that. Matter of fact, it'll be bigger than the vineyard you have, but I need this vineyard that's next to my palace. Now, I want us to understand the thing that Naboth said. Naboth said in verse 3, Jehovah forbid it me. That's what he started off with. He started off with, Jehovah forbid it me. And then he goes on to say that I should give the inheritance of my fathers unto thee. He wasn't just thinking about himself. He wasn't stopping and saying, listen, I could get a lot of money for this right now. I could probably have more land than this vineyard here. He stopped and he thought about his future generations, and he stopped and said, I can't give that to you because God wouldn't want that. Do we understand that? Do we really understand that? Because I'm telling you, as a people, we've learned that if the price is right, anything can be had, anything can be sold, anything can be moved. Some things are not worth money. And there are certain things that when it's your inheritance, that passes down from generation to generation, it's invaluable. It can't be sold. It's not for it to be passed because that's not what God would want us to do. How often as brothers and sisters do we think about that for ourselves? What our inheritance would be and what's invaluable to us that I can't pass it on from generation to different people. This should stay in my family. This should never move on out of this family. I'm telling you, as a people who have not had for so long, it's hard for us to relate to things like this. Because you would stop and you read it and you'd be like, listen, it's just a vineyard. It's not like he's not getting another vineyard. You land for land. Okay, your land used to be over here, now it's over here. But that's not the point. The point is what God wanted. Okay, he was told no. Now here's the part where your ego gets involved. I tell you no, and you become saddened by it. You go in your house, you lay on your bed, and you turn your face and you don't want to eat. You know what they call that, right? It's a temper tantrum. Like, yo, bro, you're a grown man. You're a grown man. And somebody told you no, and now you don't want to eat. Now you going to lay down on your bed because this has made you so upset, you can't believe somebody actually told you no. That's nothing more, and yes, I will say it, That's nothing more than the male ego. You can't believe that somebody had the nerve to tell you no after you offered it. And we can relate to that in these days and times, because people stop and they'll tell you, be like, listen, you really not going to do this? This is then you'd be like, it's a vineyard. It's not like he doesn't have more vineyards. It's not like he doesn't have money. It's not like he's not the king. But the fact is that somebody told you no, and now your whole spirit has changed. And that's somebody who can't control their emotions. You're not sitting down thinking about the fact that the man said, Yehovah forbid me. You're just thinking about the fact that you were told no. You know, there are just some people, they are so far into themselves that they can never believe that things can't go their way. All of a sudden, now that things aren't going your way, you see them walk around, they stressed out, you see it on their face, you like, what happened? Oh, no, I don't want to talk about it. Everything all right out? Yeah. Regardless of the time, the place, or what's going on, you still have to display your anger because something didn't go your way. And this man was the king. And he's like, what is you not eating bread gonna do to me, O king? But I'm gonna tell you this, and I want us to see the signs so we understand later. When you have people who do stuff like this, it's what you call an attention seeker. Beware of them. Beware of attention seekers. Beware of people who do things just so that people could come and ask them what's wrong. Because they have no intention of healing themselves. They have no intention of stopping and saying things will get better. They're in their feelings because they want a sympathizer to help get them what they want. And that's what this man was doing here. It goes on to read.
Verse 5. But Jezebel his wife came to him and said unto him, Why is thy spirit so sullen, that thou eatest no bread?
Now that's a good question to ask of a wife. That's to pay attention to what's going on. A wife should come and ask. You'd be like, why are things happening like this for you? What's wrong? It goes on to read.
And he said unto her, Because I spoke unto Naboth the Jezreelite, and said unto him, Give me thy vineyard for money, or else, if it please thee, I will give thee another vineyard for it. And he answered, I will not give thee my vineyard.
Right. Now, I want y'all to note this. He didn't say what Naboth said to him. He said what he heard. What he heard was, I will not give thee my vineyard. But if we jump back up to verse 3, he said, Naboth said to him, Yehovah forbid me that I should give the inheritance of my forefathers unto thee. I want y'all to remember that. Because there's a lot of times when we're listening to stories, somebody's trying to get somebody to sympathize with you. Oh, I'm wrong. I can't believe that this person is doing this, that, and another. Why don't you like this person? Oh, because this is what he said to me. And so the person, they sit there like, well, what's the problem here? When in reality, when you hear what the person really said, that's nothing like what actually went down. So if you hear this here, he said, I will not give thee my vineyard. That's all he heard because that's all he wanted to hear because he couldn't get what he wanted. But it goes on to read.
And Jezebel his wife said unto him, Dost thou now govern the kingdom of Yisrael?
Stop. Stop. Y'all see what she just did? It's divisive talk right there. I want you to understand when somebody's there to help you and when somebody's there to just give you what you want. Does thou now govern the kingdom of Israel? What does that got to do with him saying, I can't give you my vineyard? I'm going to tell you why. She knew what she was doing. She's putting the battery in his back. She's appealing to his male ego that would stop and make him say, yeah, you're right. I'm the king. You know what that means? When you stop and you be like, I'm the king, it means I could do whatever I want. I'm the king. I could do whatever I want. And the same thing, you'd be like, this is my house. I do what I want in my house. This is what I do. And you know you're about to do something that probably a lot of people in the house don't like. And so I talk about this male ego for a reason, because his wife played him. She played him so that she can do what she wanted in order to get him what he wanted, even though they understood it was wrong. It goes on to read.
Arise and eat bread.
Yeah.
And let thy heart be merry.
King.
I will give thee thy vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite.
Now, I just want y'all to think about this, and I promise I'm going to let them read. But you sit down, you be like, if I'm the king and I rule this whole thing, what in the world are you going to do that you can get me this vineyard? Now, we may know the history, but you sit down, you be like, well, all of a sudden, you got more juice than me? Or are you about to violate the laws of the Most High? Because the reality is that the reason why he went weeping on his bed and his spirit was sullen is because he understood that Naboth was right. Meanwhile, for Naboth, he's off, just thinking everything is okay, and that the king asked him for a vineyard and he told him he couldn't get it. It goes on to read.
So she wrote letters in Ahab's name,
right?
And sealed them with his seal,
the king's seal,
and sent the letters unto the elders and to the nobles that were in his city, and that dwelt with Naboth.
She got other people to co-sign on this. It reads.
And she wrote in the letters, saying, proclaim a fast, and set Naboth at the head of the people and set 2 men, base fellows, before him, and let them bear witness against him, saying, thou didst curse God and the king, and then carry him out and stone him that he die.
That's wicked. That's wicked. You know, it's bad enough. The reality is he could have just took the vineyard and been like, listen, this is mine now, and sent Naboth someplace else. He could have did that. But that wasn't Ahab's plan. This was Jezebel's plan. And for Jezebel, she went and took his seal. And then she got the elders and the nobles to co-sign on this. Do we see what's happening here? When you have somebody that will go and gather up a troop, you have somebody that will go and take and influence people because they know this is wrong. Influence people, stop and say, we're going to take 2 base men, that Hebrew term, BINAH YAH, and tell them that he cursed God and the king so that they stone him, that he die over a vineyard. We were talking in the back during the break, and I told him, I said, you know, it takes a different type of soul to sit down and watch somebody die and think nothing of it. It takes a wicked spirit to know you ordered somebody's execution, that you ordered for somebody to get hurt, and it was all because you didn't get your way. There's something wrong with that. And God is sitting here watching the whole situation, and Ahab has the opportunity to fix it, but he won't. She got elders involved. She got nobles involved. She wrote letters in the king's name, and they're like, listen, carry him out and stone him that he die. What did Naboth do to deserve this? And so that's why I sit down and I talk about judgment. And I say about the different things that we do because you know what? There's a certain time where even the king needs to be checked. There's a certain time when the king and his family need to be checked. There's a certain time where the king, his family, and those who are aiding and abetting the wicked things that he's doing, that needs to be checked. And I say, as Israelites, we don't like to stop and talk about that. We don't like to have that type of conversation. We stop and we talk and be like, that's not really going on, is it? You know, people lie to you in the name of God. People lie to you and swear in the name of God that they're not lying to you. And you catch them. And that's still not enough for us. And so I stop and I say, look at the example of Ahab, because I'm sure for Ahab, when he's starting off and he's seeing all of this, he's like, well, I didn't actually do it. She did it. And so let's take a second to talk about foreign women. He went and he had this Sidonian woman that was actually pulling the strings for him. And when I say she was pulling the strings and he was the puppet, because we seen that Jezebel was getting rid of all the prophets of the Lord, and Obadiah had to hide them 50 to a cave, if we remember our history, correct? And as time went on, she had the prophets of Baal out there, and the prophets of Baal, they ended up getting destroyed, but she went and she had all this stuff going on. Meanwhile, Ahab is just sitting down, worried about Elijah. And now, this is going on. Clearly, she had no intent of serving the Most High God. But what Ahab couldn't realize was that his wife was taking him away from serving God. Does that happen in these days and times? You sit down and I say, brothers and sisters, we have to stop and consider and learn to consider that there's a certain point where you have to stop and look at the people closest to you and wondering if they're keeping you away from serving God or if they're bringing you closer to serving God. And a lot of times we don't like to think about that because there's a conflict that goes on that stops and says, this is the person that I love. This is the person that I plan to spend the rest of my life with. But at the same time, too, what is this person doing to me that's making me act in an adverse manner? And I stop and I say to ourselves, listen, amongst the best of people, stop and be like, don't blame nobody else for what you did. You know what you did, and you did what you did because that's what you decided to do. Did that make sense? You know, y'all supposed to go, it did. You know what you want to do. You know why you did it. So why are you doing that? But the reality is that there's certain people that make us think about things that we wouldn't normally think about. And so sometimes we got to stop and admit to ourselves, maybe I don't need to be around this person like that, because whenever I'm around this person, this is when I start thinking about X, Y, and Z. And that's okay. It's okay to know yourself. You don't have to admit your weaknesses to everybody, but at least know yourself. Know when somebody makes you weak. Know when somebody leads you in a way that is not right and good. Listen, you be like, I don't hate you, but I know when I hang around you, this is what I decide to start doing. And maybe I don't need to be around this person like that. And it's okay. I'm here to tell you this day, Moreh Yeftahk is telling you all that God will love you for that. Because I understand what my weaknesses are, and I don't want God to be upset with me. It takes a bigger person to do that, you know. Instead of stopping and saying, well, this is who I've chosen and this is what it is. And don't get me wrong, this is an example of a man with his wife, but it's the same thing with a woman with a husband. It's the same thing when you have a friend, male with a male friend, female with a female friend, or male with a female friend. Sometimes your friends take you away from serving God the way you should be serving God. Doesn't mean you go and you serve JC. It just means that the level that you should be at, you're not at because of the people who you allow to entertain you. And so I sit down and I talk about Naboth and Ahab and Jezebel, because Naboth did not deserve to get what he's about to get. Naboth could not control where his forefathers' inheritance was. It was his forefathers' inheritance. He was respectful to the king. He brought the name of the Most High God into the matter, and he just wanted to live his peaceful life. And there was a wicked person that was going to mess it up for him. And so I say to us as Israelites, watch the people that come and stir up strife around us. Don't allow those people to continue to be in our midst. Don't even continue to entertain them and engage them. Because guess what? If they're bent on evil, if they're bent on wickedness, if they're bent on being angry, let them be angry by themselves. Y'all believe in positive and negative energy, right? Leave that negative energy over there. Don't allow it to enter into your space. It goes on to read.
And the men of his city, even the elders and the nobles who dwelt in the city, did as Jezebel has sent unto them, according as it was written in the letters which she has sent unto them.
Why? We stop and we say, in the beginning, we stop and we say, like, well, y'all just did it. But don't forget, she was killing people. If people didn't follow what Jezebel said, she was killing people. Why you think the prophets were hid 50 to a cave that served the Lord? Because if you didn't follow what the king's edict was, she would kill you. And so the nobles and the elders decided to do it. It goes on to read.
They proclaimed the fast and set Naboth at the head of the people. And the two men, the base fellows, came in and sat before him. And the base fellows bore witness against him, even against Naboth, in the presence of the people, saying, Naboth did curse God and the king.
And so we read this earlier, right? Two witnesses establish a matter, and no person should be killed at the mouth of one witness, but two witnesses, at the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, correct? And so now they're sitting down and she got the 2 witnesses that's going on. It's like, not only did he curse God, but he also cursed the king. So I stop and I say, I'm like, you think because people swear, you should just take their word for it? I'm telling you about how people, what we've been taught, and the next level we need to get to. Knowledge, wisdom, and understanding should reign supreme. It goes hand in hand with the Most High God. There's Yah, and wisdom dwells with him. The 8th proverb. And so wisdom will stop and tell us, just because somebody swears in the name of the Most High God, that does not end the matter. Just because somebody swore that something happened, that doesn't mean diligent inquiry shouldn't go on. That does not mean you shouldn't take a person's history. That does not mean you should not take a person's history into account. Are you a known liar? Are you a person who actually fears God? Because if you don't fear God, just because you swear in the name of the Most High God, what does that mean to you? What does it mean to the person who has done 82 different things that are worthy of death, and this is just one more thing to them? And so we stop and we say, you'd be like, you know, Moreh, I I don't think somebody would just come and swear in the name of the Most High God like that. I don't believe that. Did we see that happen in the book of Joshua? They went and they swore in the name of the Lord that they were one people, and they actually weren't those people. Because then why did they say it? They said, because I knew you'd kill us. So I'm saying that because, you know, when you have somebody, don't think that people won't lie on you. Don't think that people won't spread vicious rumors about you. Do an investigation, do diligent inquiry, and then make a decision. I mean, I heard Chief Meckel this morning. It's like, I agree. Do we really believe that crazy doesn't exist anymore? Some people will just say anything because that's who they are. And while we can't get around that, we can do our job and make sure that when people are lying or when people are trying to assassinate somebody's character, that we correct the situation. It goes on to read.
Then they carried him forth out of the city and stoned him with stones, that he died.
Right.
Then they sent to Jezebel, saying, Naboth is stoned and is dead.
I want y'all to see this now. Whose sale did she use on those letters? But who did they report back to? Jezebel. Trying to tell you, puppet king. Ahab was a chump. He let his wife pull all the strings. And they understood where it was coming from, and they reported back to her. It goes on to read.
Verse 15. And it came to pass, when Jezebel heard that Naboth was stoned and was dead, that Jezebel said to Ahab, Arise, take possession of the vineyard of Naboth, the Jezreelite, which he refused to give thee for money. For Naboth is not alive, but dead.
Okay, so I know this ain't question and answer, but Naboth dies. Who does the vineyard go to? Those people of the inheritance. So even with him dead, Ahab wouldn't have a right to the vineyard. It's not like he was like, oh brother, give me thy vineyard. He's telling them that that's not your possession, that this is my forefather's possession. So now that he's dead, she's like, oh, go up and take it because he's dead. And it's not even clicking to him that, listen, you're still stealing somebody's land. You're still a thief. And you know what? Your wife is a murderer, and you aided and abetted in that man dying. That's what happened. But not so for Ahab, because he just wanted the vineyard. Even at the cost of this man's life. And if the man's life wasn't important enough to him, what is? But I stop and I say, when you're already a killer, when you're already wicked, what's one more evil thing for you to do? It goes on to read.
And it came to pass, when Ahab heard that Naboth was dead, that Ahab rose up to go down to the vineyard of Naboth, the Jezreelite, to take possession of it. And the word of Jehovah came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, Arise, go down to meet Ahab, king of Yisrael, who dwelleth in Samaria. Behold, he is in the vineyard of Naboth. Whether he is gone down to take possession of it.
The man, this is the amazing part of it all. Like, all of this could be going on, and right after he dies, you show up in the vineyard. That don't make you feel some type of way? Be like, I'm standing in a dead man's vineyard, and I'm coming to take it over. I'm telling you, you have to have a different type of spirit. There has to be a certain level of evil in you that somebody can die, and you're like, I want to take what they have. And the reality is it happens more often than we'd like to admit to ourselves. People die, and they're ready to divvy up what that person has. not only the family, people who are not family want to take what that dead person has. And you know how they justify it? He's dead anyway, he ain't coming back. You sit down and you be like, listen, so there's gonna be no period of like grief and like let's wait a while. Let's like take a second to, nope. That's what it is. And you know, his wife told him go take possession of it. And where did Elijah find him? Right in the vineyard. And it was appropriate because what he's about to tell him, he needed to be standing there so he could understand what he did. It goes on to read.
And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith Jehovah, hast thou killed and also taken possession?
Right. Now, I want y'all to understand this. I'm going to let him read, but I want y'all to understand this. Did God appear to Jezebel? No. Not at all. I don't need to talk to her because she doesn't know the ways of the Most High God. And clearly you didn't teach her. I need to talk to you, O king, because you're in charge.
And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith Jehovah, in the place where dogs lick the blood of Naboth, shall dogs lick thy blood, even thine?
Right. You're the same place where they're gonna get rid of Naboth's body, they're gonna get rid of your body. It reads.
And Ahab said to Elijah, Hast thou found me, O mine enemy?
That's ego. That's ego. That's when I say that's ego. Somebody's telling you about what the Most High God says, and you be like, oh, here goes my enemy talking about me again. You sit down, you be like, did you hear what he just told you about the Most High God? And the only thing you can say is, has thou found me, O my enemy? I'm telling you there's something wrong with this guy in the head. You're like, really? Really? Of all things we could talk about right now, oh my enemy. That's who Ahab was. And sometimes you got to realize that sometimes you may have a leader that's like that. We say that in these days and times. You look at Trump. I mean, the level of pompous that he is ridiculous. Sit down, people could continue to tell you about how you're wrong, and you're just like, care? Elders, whatever. Queen of England, woman, it's about me right now. I go first, you go next. It's how it is for them. They don't care because they're not interested in what everybody else has in mind. They're just interested about themselves. And so when he sees Elijah, that anger can only stir up in him because he knows that Elijah is not going to cater to his ego. And egotistical people just don't like that. Why are you disagreeing with me? Why are you telling me something other than what I want to hear? This is not a man that wanted to serve God. It goes on to read.
Middle of 20. And he answered, I have found thee because thou hast given thyself over to do that which is evil in the sight of Jehovah.
Right.
Behold, I will bring evil upon thee and will utterly sweep thee away and will cut off from Ahab every man child and him that is shut up and him that is left at large in Yisrael. And I will make thy house like the house of Jeroboam, the son of Naboth, and like the house of Baasa, the son of Ahaziah, for the provocation wherewith thou hast provoked me and hast made Yisrael to sin.
I want y'all to understand this. He compared him to Jeroboam. He sat down and he was like, I'm not gonna just destroy you. I'm gonna destroy everything about you. It's not good enough for just you to die. I'm telling you that you're influencing people that everyone around you needs to die. Do we understand that word provocation? You know, a lot of times I stop and I say, I was like, you know, as Israelites, we don't know when to leave well enough alone. Like there's sometimes where you stop and you see the person isn't saying anything about what you're doing. So you would think that you would just move on. But oftentimes what ends up happening is we see that we get away with something. So what's the logical thing to do? Keep doing it. Like, oh, I got away with that. Matter of fact, let me do it again. Matter of fact, I'm going to be more bold with it this time. And so as it keeps going on, we don't realize that we continue to upset God with what we do. That's the problem with repeating our sins. We repeat our sins and we do it over and over and over, and we ask God for forgiveness, never considering that we're provoking God each and every time we go back to the sin we asked him for forgiveness for. And so a lot of times we stop and we say, oh, listen, long as the person I sinned against forgives me, then God forgives me. But that's not how that works. Yes, you need for the person that you sinned against to forgive you, but don't think that God doesn't need to forgive you also. Sometimes the pain and the despair we have in our lives is a direct result of the constant sins that we do that we should have known better than continuing to do. And so for Ahab, when he told them, I'm going to kill every man-child, somebody tell me how many kids Ahab had. Go ahead, somebody yell out 70. At any point. Don't even. 70, thank you. Sister Edna, I knew you'd help me out here. 70 children. Wow. Listen, I tell you, polygyny. It's what was going on. And God is saying, I'm going to kill all of them. Now, let me tell you something. I don't care what anybody says. You got to be committed to have 70 children. I like to think I'm committed at 5. 70? So listen, you got to be committed. You be like, listen, this is what I'm doing. And so I tell us to focus on that word provocation, because when God said that he was going to kill them and he was going to destroy them, it wasn't a game. He said, and you made Israel to sin. How you made Israel to sin? Because you got them, not only do you got them into false God worship, but you got people killing innocent men. And that doesn't even click to you. You don't deserve to live in my earth. It reads.
And of Jezebel also spoke Yahweh, saying, the dogs shall eat Jezebel in the moat of Jezreel. Him that dieth of Ahab in the city, the dogs shall eat, and him that dieth in the field shall the fowls of the air eat. But there was none like unto Ahab, who did give himself over to do that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh, whom Jezebel his wife stirred up.
I'm telling y'all, I'm just telling you about your friends, your family, and your acquaintances. You sit down, you like, she was the one stirring him up. She was the one. And God understood that she was stirring him up, but God expected Ahab to do better. And that's the point that I want us to understand. Because guess what? The same way he chose his wife is the same way that he could choose to do better. He didn't have to allow her to continue to do those things. He didn't have to allow her to have an innocent man be killed, but that's what he allowed to happen. And God made it simple in one phrase. The dog shall eat Jezebel in the moat of Jezreel. And he moved on. You let her stir you up, and that's fine. She's going to get what's coming to her, but you're going to be destroyed also. And so I say to us, brothers and sisters, take control of your own destiny. Don't live a life that other people dictate to you who don't want to serve God. you have absolutely no obligation whatsoever to continue to endure people's wickedness because they don't want to serve God. None whatsoever. You have absolutely no obligation to sit down and feel some type of way about the way you serve God because other people don't want to serve God. There's no obligation to that. I don't have to feel a certain type of way or allow you to make me feel a certain type of way because you only want to reach this level in serving God, and to serve God properly is up here and I'm trying to reach here. I don't have an obligation to you or anybody else. Our obligation is to the Most High God. He commanded us to be perfect. He commanded us to do all his laws, statutes, and commandments. And so when you see somebody faltering or you see somebody at a certain space, you don't necessarily have to get rid of them, but they also don't have to impede you from moving forward. It goes on to read.
And he did very abominably in following idols,
right,
according to all that the Amorites did,
right,
whom Jehovah cast out before the children of Yisrael.
This is Ahab. Wasn't just about this one instance. It's about what he was doing over the course of time. Remember that. Goes on to read.
And it came to pass, when Ahab heard those words, that he rent his clothes and put sackcloth upon his flesh and fasted and lay in sackcloth and went softly.
Now that's the right thing to do, correct? God has put a curse on you that it's just a curse. You're like, my goodness. What do you say to that? He didn't say anything. He did the right thing. He put on sackcloth, he fasted, and he went on softly. Meaning what? He was quiet. He didn't become pompous about the situation. He didn't become arrogant. He realized what his fate was, and he went on. And then it reads.
And the word of Jehovah came to Elijah, the Tishbite, saying, Seest thou how Ahab humbleth himself before me? Because he humbleth himself before me, I will not bring the evil in his days, but in his son's days will I bring the evil upon his house.
Now, I just want us to understand this. Sounds nice. I'm not taking anything away from the Most High God. But when God stops and tells you, I'm going to kill you and everything around you, I don't know necessarily how to take that. There's another part in the history where we will see Ahab was happy at these words. It was like, God has spoken well. And it will speak more to his selfishness once again. Because the reality is, okay, it's not immediate, but at the end of the day, you sacrificed everything because you just wanted to do things your way. It goes on to read.
Chapter 22.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. And they continued 3 years without war between Adam and Yisrael. And it came to pass in the 3rd year that Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, came down to the king of Yisrael.
Now, I just want us to understand this as he continues to read. I found it quite interesting through this whole chapter, except till we get to the end, they don't refer to him as Ahab anymore. They just refer to him as the king of Israel. Keep that in mind. It goes on to read.
And the king of Yisrael said unto his servants, Know ye that Ramoth Gilead is ours, and we are still, and take it not out of the hand of the king of Aram? And he said unto Jehoshaphat, Wilt thou go with me to battle to Ramoth Gilead? And Jehoshaphat said to the king of Yisrael, I am as thou art, my people as thy people, my horses as thy horses.
All right, so I want us to understand this. They went and they seen that the Arameans didn't want to fight with us anymore. And they knew the king of Israel understood that Ramoth Gilead was ours. So when they seen that they didn't want any problems, they was like, listen, let's go back. Let's go and retake Ramoth Gilead. Okay, not a problem. He reaches out to the king of Judah, Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat is down in the south, and he's asking him, he's like, listen, will you go fight with me? And he said, my people is your people, and my horses is your horses. Saying, listen, if this is what you want to do, let's go and do it. It goes on to read.
And Jehoshaphat said unto the king of Yisrael, inquire, I pray thee at the word of Jehovah today.
Now I want us to understand this. Jehoshaphat was wise. He was like, hey, listen, before we do all of this, let's go up and ask the Most High God what we should do. And I challenge us with this question. When the chapter just ended, and Elijah the Tishbite said all of this stuff to Ahab and proclaimed his curse upon him, you think he told that to Jehoshaphat? I can't say whether he did or if he didn't, but I'm inclined to think that if Ahab told Jehoshaphat the curse that the Most High God put on him, he would have thought twice about going to this war. But we'll read.
Then the king of Yisrael gathered the prophets together, about 400 men, and said unto them, shall I go against Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall I forbear? And they said, go up, for Jehovah will deliver it into the hand of the king.
Now, I'm going to tell y'all something about the Hebrew. You know, the king gathered the prophets together, right? This is Ahab. Who are these prophets? 400 men. Now, the prophets of Baal were destroyed, right? No, not to say they're not Baal, but the prophets of Baal were destroyed back in chapter 17. It doesn't say all of them were destroyed. Goes out, you know, like in Christendom, you know, you got priests of Christianity all throughout the planet, right? So you sit down and they go, and the Hebrew part that I'm talking about is, it says in the middle of 6, and they said, go up, for the Lord will deliver it into the hand of the king. They didn't say Yahweh at that point. They used the word Adonai. And I want us to keep that in mind, because Jehoshaphat, he's not stupid. He knows what's going on here. And sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire. Goes on to read.
Verse 7. But Jehoshaphat said, is there not here besides a prophet of Jehovah?
Of Yahweh. Now he used the word Yahweh. Go ahead.
Is there not here besides a prophet of Jehovah that we might inquire of him?
Yeah, because he's like, he's sitting down and he's letting you know. He's like, yeah, I know this game that y'all play. Y'all sit down and y'all say, oh, the Lord said unto me, and you ain't talking about the Most High. You talking about whatever you call on. But Jehoshaphat stopped and he said, is there not a prophet of Yahweh here? Now, that's indicative of that point, that these were not the prophets of the Most High that was there, but Ahab still had his yes men around him. It goes on to read.
And the king of Yisrael said unto Jehoshaphat, there is yet one man by whom we may inquire of Jehovah, Micaiah, the son of Imlah.
Yeah.
But I hate
him. All right, come on.
For he doeth not prophecy, good concerning me.
Yeah, he doesn't.
But evil.
He doesn't prophesy good concerning me. It's only evil. I want y'all to understand this. I've been talking about the male ego, right? He said, but I hate him. Remember Elijah the Tishbite? Have you found me, O enemy of mine? It doesn't stop with this guy. He's like, yeah, there's another guy here. He said, there's one guy. All of these people, there's one guy calling upon Yahweh. One. He's like, but you want to listen to him? I hate him. He's like, he's going to come here and he's going to start talking something that I don't want to hear. Do we understand this? Do we know what's going on here? You sit down, you be like, why in the world would I want to talk to you and you're not going to tell me that which is right? So let's take a second to talk about friends. Friends are supposed to support you in what you do, right? That's what a real friend does. And friends are supposed to be there for you when you need to call upon them, right? And family even more so, right? Because blood is thicker than all of that. And if you have a wife, my goodness, nobody's supposed to be closer to you than her. And the same thing conversely for a woman with her husband. However, if they won't tell you when you're doing wrong, does that person really love you? I well understand there's a comely rebuke. But does that person love you when they won't tell you you're doing something wrong? That's why I stop and I say, you'd be like, do you have real friends? Because your real friends will stop and, pull your coattail. Your real friends will stop and be like, hey, listen, I need to talk to you for a second. Your real friends, those who really love you, will stop and say, you're not going in a way that's good, and I think you need to change. That's the type of friends you need in your life. Your real friends be like, listen, I don't know if you know, but, this is what you need to change. And so I stop and I say that a lot of times when we get upset at our leaders, because our leaders are telling us something that needs to change, don't get mad at me if the shoe fits. Just fix it. You don't need to come to me and stop and say, hey, Moreh, I fixed that. I don't need to hear that. That's between you and God. That's between you and God to fix what you need to fix. Listen, tell anybody, you got your sins and I got mine. I'm not proud of the bag that I have, but I need to clear it just like you need to clear yours. And so when we see these things happen, there's sometimes where I may be lying to myself saying that something is okay, and it's not okay. And so I need friends to come to me, Moreh, listen, when I seen you do this. And guess what? Don't just come to me and be like, you know what you're doing wrong. Be able to show me in this book. Stop and say, hey, listen, this says this here and this says that here. I read. I don't have a problem when somebody comes and tells me something, and neither should you. You should never have a problem when somebody's trying to help you for your own good. And guess what? It doesn't always have to come from an elder. It can come from a peer, and dare I state it can come from youth. It can come from anybody. You just have to be ready to receive it. And I want us to understand this. There's sometimes where we are so far gone. There are sometimes we are so far in. There's sometimes where we went so far out to the deep part of the ocean that there's a point where God won't want you to get it. Because he knows there's no part of humility in you that he needs that back within his nation. And so when I sit down and I talk about Jehoshaphat, because I want y'all to understand the difference between the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat. The difference between King Ahab and Jehoshaphat. The reality is that the first thing that Jehoshaphat thought about was the Most High God. The first thing that King Ahab thought about was who was going to tell him yes. He was happy when his wife told him, eat, be merry, and I'll get you the vineyard. That made him happy. And so if that's the type of thing you like in your life, that'll be fine. I'll give you that. I'll allow you to be happy. I'll allow you to surround yourself with yes men. But the only question is, at what cost? Sit down, you be like, you like prophets around you? I'll give you the false prophets you want. And I won't even allow you to see that I'm letting them make you think that everything is okay so that I can kill you. It reads.
And Jehoshaphat said, let not the king say so. Verse 9. Then the king of Yisrael called an officer and said, fetch quickly Micaiah the son of Imlah. Now Now the king of Yisrael and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, sat each on his throne, arrayed in their robes, in the threshing floor, at the entrance of the gate of Samaria. And all the prophets prophesied before them. And Zedekiah, the son of Kenana, made him horns of iron, and said, Thus saith Yahweh, with these shalt thou gore the Arameans until they be consumed.
Yeah, he's prophesying. He's saying, with these right here, this is what you're going to gore the Arameans with. Trying to make it look legitimate. It reads.
And all the prophets prophesied, so saying, Go to Ramoth Gilead and prosper, for Yahweh will deliver it until the hand of the king.
And these guys were lying. It reads.
And the messenger that went to call Micaiah spoke unto him, saying, Behold, now the words of the prophets declare good unto the king.
Look at this.
With one mouth. Let thy word, I pray thee, be like the word of one of them, and speak thou good.
How you gonna do that in the name of God? Everybody else, I want y'all to understand what's going on here. Everybody else spoke good, Micaiah. You need to go in there and do the same type of thing. That's what he's telling them. He said, Behold now, the words of the prophets declare good unto the king with one mouth. You know how you got people that just don't like people that rock the boat? Everybody's agreeing, and you gotta be the only one to not agree. Trust me, I know, because I'm that person at work. I admit it, I own who I am. I'm sitting there, I'm like, y'all just agreeing because the manager just said X, Y, and Z? Be like, listen, I'm not here to be a yes person. If y'all want a yes person, get somebody else. God gave me a mouth to be heard. If you don't want to hear from me, don't bring me into the meeting. I will not be mad. I'm telling y'all, because you know what ends up happening later when it doesn't work. Step down. How come nobody told us that this was going to work like this? And of course, I'm sitting there like, I told you guys. You know I told you guys. Y'all just don't want to admit it. And you know what people say. This is how it works. So say, but you didn't say it like that. Right. I get it. And so here, they're trying to influence the prophet. And look at what Micaiah does. He says in verse 14.
And Micaiah said, As Yahweh liveth, what Yahweh said unto me, that will I speak.
That's the stance we have to hold. That's where we have to be all the time. What the Most High says, that's what I'm doing. I don't care what you, or you say. I don't care how many scriptures you try and bring out. I understand that which is right. And if it's in this book, that's what I'm going to speak. And none of y'all are going to make me feel bad about me speaking about the word of the Most High God. That's who Moreh Mishael was. I could respect that man, because people used to be like, no, Moreh, it's supposed to be blah, 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 blah. And I watch that man, he'd be like, nope, it says that here, it says that here, and you don't understand it because you don't even learn Hebrew to understand what's being said. And Moreh was a funny guy, because he'd be like, and as a matter of fact, before you come and speak to me, make sure you go get yourself a katonet, and then we could pick up this conversation. Tell you it just like that. Had to think twice. No, I'm just trying to explain, Moreh. It's what's going on here. These men sit down. He said, as Jehovah lives, that's what I'm going to speak. I'm not appeasing the king. If you want to make the king feel happy with your words, you do that. But this is what I do here. It reads.
And when he was come to the king said unto him, Micaiah, shall we go to Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall we forbear? And he answered him, Go up and prosper, and Yahweh will deliver it into the hand of the king.
Sarcasm. It reads.
And the king said unto him, How many times shall I adjure thee that thou speak unto me nothing but the truth in the name of Yahweh?
Yeah, because he said that. He told them, he said, yeah, go up and prosper, and the Lord will be with thee. But he was using sarcasm when he said that. Because he wanted, after all those people come and tell him, oh, say what the king wants to hear, he was like, if that's what you want to hear, that's what it is. And so now the king is like, how many times shall I adjure thee? How many times I just want to know what the Most High says. And he goes on to read. It goes on to read.
And he said, I saw all Yisrael scattered upon the mountains as sheep that have no shepherd. And Jehovah said, these have no master. Let them return every man to his house in peace.
Right. That's not what he wanted to hear.
And
because he was sitting down and he was like, wait a second. If they have no master, what does that mean? Somebody died. He said that he told the king to his face, you're going to go up there and you're going to die. It goes on to read.
And the king of Yisrael said to Jehoshaphat, did I not tell thee that he would not prophesy good concerning me, but evil? And he said, therefore, hear thou the word of Jehovah. I saw Jehovah sitting on his throne, and all the hosts of heaven standing by him on his right hand and on his left. And Jehovah said, who shall entice Ahab, that he may go up and fall at remote Gilead?
Right.
And one said on this manner, and another said on that manner. And there came forth the Spirit and stood before Jehovah and said, I will entice him.
I want us to understand this. Hold that right there. I want us to understand this. This man is prophesying, and Ahab turns to Jehoshaphat, and he's like, I told you. Didn't I tell you this? What he said? He'd be like, he's bold enough to come here and tell me that I'm going to die. And while he's talking to Jehoshaphat, he goes on with his prophecy, and he goes, I seen the Most High talking to the host of heaven, and he stops and he says, who shall entice Ahab, that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? Now, this prophecy was as much for Ahab as it was for Jehoshaphat. Because what Jehoshaphat needed to understand was who he was rolling with. That's what he needed to understand. At the same time, too, for Micaiah, he had to stop and tell the king that he was going to die and that the Most High God put a lying spirit into these people so that you would believe them and that you would go to your death. We don't like to talk about stuff like that because that's weird to us. That's strange to us. You mean God can actually send somebody to lie to me so that I would stop and be like, yes, this is okay, so that he will kill me? That's not right. That's not playing fair. God is supposed to be warning me. God, I'm supposed to, this is how this works in my mind. God tells me, no, don't do it, and I have the option to be like, yeah, you're right, God. I'm sorry. It's not supposed to be. No, absolutely. Go ahead. Serve that false God. There's no problem with that. Commit adultery. It is. Everybody does it, brother. You won't be the only one. You can just go and apologize on Yom Kippur like everybody else does, and time will go on. Didn't David beat the case? That's that lying spirit. You know what that lying spirit is? That's when your conscience allows you to lie to yourself that something is okay and it's not okay. That lying spirit. I done did 18 different things that's wicked. What's one more wicked thing? That's that lying spirit. Who told you that God wants everybody? God doesn't want everybody. And Ahab can't even realize this because his death sentence was already pronounced to him. And he couldn't realize it. You know why? Because it was 3 years later. And because time passed, he thought it was all good. And it wasn't all good. When God says something, he means it, brothers and sisters. It reads.
Verse 22. And Jehovah said unto him, wherewith? And he said, I will go forth, and will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets.
Right.
And he said, thou shalt entice him, and shalt prevail also. Go forth and do so. Now therefore, behold, Jehovah had put a lying spirit in the mouth of all these thy prophets, and Jehovah had spoken evil concerning thee. Then Zedekiah the son of Kenana came near and smote Micaiah on the cheek, and said, which way went the spirit of Jehovah from me to speak unto thee?
Listen, they putting the writer is putting it nice, but he just got slapped in his face, and he stopped and he told him, he's like, how all of a sudden is the Spirit of the Lord speaking to you and he spoke to me? Because the reality is that the Most High God caused those men to believe that God was speaking to them, when in truth, he was a lying spirit in all of their mouths. And so I say that about friends, family, and acquaintances. I say that about friends, family, and associates. There's sometimes where you're listening to people, and even though they may be somebody close unto you, and even though you may value their opinion, consider the fact about how they're talking about the Most High God and how that plays into your role in being an Israelite. Because though they may advise you in other areas and it may be good concerning your life and doing the laws of the Most High God, they may not be advising you in a way that is right and good. And God may just actually be testing you. It reads.
And Micaiah said, behold, thou shalt see on that day when thou shalt go into an inner chamber to hide thyself.
He's like, yeah, and you'll be next. You'll see if I'm lying, because when you go to hide yourself, then you'll remember this moment. It reads.
And the king of Yisrael said, take Micaiah and carry him back unto Ammon, the governor of the city, and to Joash, the king's son, and say, thus saith the king, put this fellow in the prison and feed him with scant bread and with scant water until I come in peace.
Look, now, I want y'all to understand this. God just told him when he goes up to remote Gilead, he's going to die. King Ahab made him a criminal and stopped and said, put him in jail and don't let him out until I come back in peace. How many people here think that King Ahab was coming back? Be like, oh yeah, I just want y'all to understand what people do. You be like, oh, you want to talk tough? All right, fine. Sit in jail till I get back here, and we'll see how you feel about that. Am I still going to go die up on the hill? And let's see what Micaiah has to say.
And Micaiah said,
right?
If thou return at all in peace, Jehovah hath not spoken by me. And he said, hear ye, peoples, all of you.
Yeah. He sit down, he'd be like, listen, if you come back here in peace, the Most High God has not said, yo, this is big talk right now. Sitting down, he'd be like, I'm telling you, you're about to die. And see, it's a game for Ahab because his ego is charging him. It reads.
So the king of Yisrael and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, went up to Ramoth Gilead. And the king of Yisrael said unto Jehoshaphat, I will disguise myself and go into the battle, but put thou on thy robes.
This has to be about the dumbest idea like ever. And I can't believe Jehoshaphat fell for this. He sits down, he'd be like, we're the kings, I'm going to disguise myself, but you put on your robes.
And the king
so everybody's going to come and try and kill me, and nobody's going to be looking for you. Is that what you're telling me, Ahab? But God was in the matter. It reads.
And the king of Yisrael disguised himself and went into the battle. Now the king of Aram had commanded 32 captains of his chariot, saying, fight neither with small nor great, save only with the king of Yisrael.
This is a hit. I don't care about who's small or who's great. I want the king dead. Don't worry about all that other stuff. Get the king. Kill him. Object being, cut off the head, the body will fall. It reads.
And it came to pass, when the captains of the chariots saw Jehoshaphat, that they said, surely it is the king of Yisrael. And they turned aside to fight against him. And Jehoshaphat cried out.
Right.
And it came to pass when the captains of the chariots saw that it was not the king of Yisrael, that they turned back from pursuing him.
Right, because they realized they were looking for Ahab, and when they seen that it was Jehoshaphat, they were like, that's not our command. The beef is not with you. It goes on.
And a certain man drew his bow at a venture and smote the king of Yisrael between the lower armor and the breastplate. Wherefore he said unto the driver of his chariot, turn thy hand and carry me out of the host, for I am sore wounded. And the battle increased that day, and the king was stayed up in his chariot against the Arameans and died at even. And the blood ran out of the wound into the bottom of the chariot. And there went a cry throughout the host about the going down of the sun, saying, every man to his city and every man to his country. So the king died and was brought to Samaria, and they buried the king in Samaria. And they washed the chariot by the pool of Samaria, and the dogs licked up his blood. The harlots also washed themselves there, according unto the word of Yahweh which he spoke.
Right, and I want us to understand this. Not only did Micaiah prophesy this, but 3 years earlier, Elijah the Tishbite prophesied the same thing, talking about the chariot and the dogs licking the blood. And so that's why I say about prophecy, for us to understand, it may not happen in the time that we expect it, but if God said it, it will definitely happen. It reads,
now the rest of the acts of Ahab and all that he did, and the ivory house which he built, and all the cities that he built, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Yisrael? So Ahab slept with his fathers, and Ahaziah, his son, reigned in his stead. And Jehoshaphat, the son of Asa, began to reign over Judah in the 4th year of Ahab, king of Yisrael. Jehoshaphat was 35 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 25 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Azubah, the daughter of Shehili. Sorry, did I say right? Okay. And he walked in all the way of Asa his father. He turned not aside from it, doing that which was right in the eyes of Jehovah. Howbeit, the high places were not taken away. The people still sacrificed and offered in the high places. And Jehoshaphat made peace with the king of Yisrael. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoshaphat and his might that he showed, and how he warred, and are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of kings of Judah? And the remnant of the Sodomites that remained in the days of his father Asa, he put away out of the land.
And I want us to understand about this point. I understand earlier back in verse 37 where it talked about where the harlots washed themselves. And now they're talking about how he put the Sodomites out of the land. Understand that what King Ahab had set up, there was remnants of that as time went on. And so as Jehoshaphat went on, and there was different kings of Israel, he made peace with the kings of Israel, but they understood that there was a certain part of cleaning the house that they needed to do. So when it says the remnant of the Sodomites that remained in the days of his father Asa, he put away out of the land, he understood that there was a section that those people were there, but they could no longer inherit the land in order for him to get closer to God. It goes on to read.
Verse 48. And there was no king in Edom, a deputy was king. Jehoshaphat made ships of Tarshish to go to Ophir for gold, but they went not, for the ships were broken at Ezion-Geber. Then said Ahaziah, the son of Ahab, unto Jehoshaphat, let my servants go with thy servants in the ships. But Jehoshaphat would not. And Jehoshaphat slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David, his father. And Jehoram, his son, reigned in his stead. Ahaziah, the son of Ahab, began to reign over Israel and Samaria in the 17th year of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah. And he reigned 2 years over Yisrael, and he did that which was evil in the sight of Jehovah, and walked in the way of his father, and the way of his mother, and the way of Jeroboam, the son of Naboth, wherein he made Yisrael to sin.
By doing what?
And he served Baal, and worshipped him. And provoked Jehovah, the God of Yisrael, according to all that his father had done. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. And so I want us to understand about this. This is what was going on. If we don't get ourselves better as a people, God is going to continue to destroy us as a nation. How you can stop and look at what happened to Ahab and still desire to do the same thing later on is beyond me. However, the point of all of this is being, when you're in a position to do better, do it. And the fact of the matter is that we have more than enough information that will allow us to even correct the things that we have and do things in a way that God will be pleased with us in order that he might bless us as a people. We finished the book of Kings, and as time goes on, we'll continue to teach the history of our forefathers, hoping and praying that you got something out of what I said, and that the Most High God found these words acceptable to be spoken before his people. As I bid you all in the tongue of our forefathers, Shabbat Shalom Lakem.
Shabbat Shalom.